Hey guys, Julia here. We're officially living in the dumbest timeline possible. Elections were 2 weeks ago, and Sarah McBride became our first openly trans congresswoman. In a perfect world, this would not be a talking, or like, this wouldn't be talked about at all because it's literally just another congressperson getting elected. But obviously, we don't live in a perfect world. We live in the world we live in now, uh, far from perfect. And oh my God, there's been so much crazy discourse around her for no reason besides the fact that she's trans. Like, if we're gonna have discourse about her, can we have discourse about the fact that she's taking money from APAC, not about the fact that she's a trans woman? Like, that's literally the stupidest reason to have discourse. But with that out of the way, I want to get to the person who instantiated all of this really, really petty political feuding. And that's United States Representative Nancy Mace from the great state of South Carolina. I can say that sarcastically because I used to live here and I never want to go back ever again. I mean, North Carolina is really not that much better, so... Anyway, Nancy Mace describes herself as a Republican feminist, and I feel like that entire phrase in its entirety should just tell you everything you need to know about her. It's like a turf on crack because she's not limited by, like, neoliberalism. She's fully in on the Republican ideals of having small government, power to people, but at the same time, imposing government mandates on who can and who can't use bathrooms. So she's making headlines now because of this really stupid, and I mean this in the most sincere way, this really stupid tweet and flurry of tweets where she was attacking transgender, I mean not directly, kind of directly, kind of indirectly attacking trans women in Congress, in this case being Sarah McBride, by basically saying that she wasn't welcome to use women's spaces because a biological man in a woman's space is an invasion of a woman's privacy. And Mace's Twitter feed for the past 72 hours has just been actually insane. It's like think J.K. Rowling, except way worse because this person's in her government. It's weird too because like her post from a few years ago wasn't even necessarily like explicitly pro-trans. It was just more of a general understanding of elevating people's voices in the LGBT community, protecting their rights, protecting them from discrimination. And within 3 years, we've already seen that all reversed in the attempt to appeal to what's going to be the Republican majority. Now, I do want to be fair to Nancy, so I'm going to let her explain herself. Here's a video telling why she's so vehemently against trans women in women's bathrooms.
Question is, with your piece of legislation about banning women from using...
100% yes.
My question to you is...
And it doesn't go far enough. I'll be filing more bills.
You have said that it was created in response to Congresswoman-elect McBride.
100%. And
but should legislation be created targeted at one specific person?
It doesn't mention anyone in the legislation, but
you've said it was aimed at her.
No, I have said it's a result of this. I'm not going to allow biological men into women's private spaces. I will stand in the brink and stand in the way of anyone on the radical left who thinks that it's okay for a penis to be in a women's locker room or a bathroom or a changing room. Hell no. I am not going to stand for it. And the speaker said it would be in the House rules package. If it's not, I'll be ready with a motion, a privileged motion to force a vote on this. This is not okay. I'm a survivor of rape. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. And I'm not going to allow any man in any female private spaces.
Now, Speaker.
End of story. And by the way, I'm getting death threats from men pretending to be women. Why is it that these crazy people, the insanity, the radical left, are willing to kill women over a man's right to be in a women's restroom?
Here's a problem with this logic. Men who want to commit sexual assault don't need to pretend to be a woman to commit sexual assault. A vast majority of all reported assault cases in the United States against women are by cisgender men. If anything, you should be looking at your good friend Matt Gaetz, who stepped down from his potential position as Attorney General after a second person came out alleging that he had sex with a 17-year-old. Furthermore, the potential appointee for the United States Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, has a pretty credible accusation of sexual assault. So when we're looking at Sarah McBride, we're not even looking at someone who has accusations of sexual assault thrown around her. We're just looking at someone who's a trans woman. The actual people who are, like, accused of committing sexual assault, who have been found liable by a jury of committing sexual assault, are being put in office. But no, of course, the issue here is a trans woman. And I guess what I'm trying to do, at least right now, is to rationalize why this is happening with a lot of Republicans and Democrats. And the sudden turn on transgender people, where previously there was no issue with them, or very little issue, if anything. I mean, with Democrats, just see all the people who cast the blame on trans people for losing the 2024 election, when it was just a really bad policy and bad campaigning. I think what we're seeing happening right now is the trans issue, which I hate this saying that because it's not even an issue, really. But this whole thing becoming a wedge issue, where this is solely what Republicans are going to campaign off of for the next 4 years and attack relentlessly. God. I've seen a lot of people compare this to the Jim Crow South in the 1950s, where black women or black men weren't able to use the same restrooms as white women or white men. But in this specific instance, instead of being based on the color of someone's skin, it's based on the transvestigation police and their foray into transvestigating every woman who uses a bathroom. Like, let's just take a moment to acknowledge how crazy this sounds from an outsider's perspective, that you're passing legislation to protect yourself from a threat that's not even there. I'm being genuinely serious. So people who are thinking like Nancy Mace, what do you do when you use a bathroom? I thought, like, we're all just supposed to get in their piss, wash our hands, and get out. That's all I do anyways. Do you look over the bathroom stall and inspect someone's genitals to determine if they're a biological male? Because if you do, that's a you problem, not a me problem. And this also raises the question of, what about trans women who have had bottom surgery and have had their genitals altered to where it's indistinguishable from a real vagina? Are those women allowed in bathrooms or locker rooms because, I mean, they have the proper equipment, or are they not because they were born a biological male? It's almost like the issue wasn't ever about biological sex, but about marginalized people having the same rights that you do, sweetie. So Sarah McBride's response to all of this was a pragmatic, run-of-the-mill Democrat response to, yeah, I don't agree with this, but I'm going to comply with whatever. And understandably, a lot of transgender people got irritated, mad at her. I think they have a right to. I'm irritated only if for the fact that this concession, while yes, it's a pragmatic, it's diplomatic, it doesn't cause any further conflict, will potentially lead to further legislation being enacted during Trump's presidency to limit what restrooms transgender people can use. So now, obviously, the main targets are going to be federally and state-funded places, but it wouldn't be surprising if we eventually start to see private places also start targeting transgender people, specifically with a potential Supreme Court case that could be brought, kind of like the gay wedding cake case that was brought to the Supreme Court a while back. Something that's funny from all of this is the fact that Libs of TikTok obviously got involved with all of this, and they posted about this, but a bunch of their followers thought that Nancy Mace was also trans because I guess she had more masculine features, and like this whole tweet is just comedy gold. But like, it also goes to show that like nobody's safe from transvestigations or transphobia. It's something that affects even cis people who don't fit within this rigid gender binary that Western society has created. We saw this happen over the summer with Imani Khalif in the Olympics. We're seeing it happen now with Nancy Mace and Libs of TikTok. I don't feel bad for her because she put herself in this situation. I just think it's so stupid that this is being such a focal talking point for people like her and survivors of assault and rape when there are more serious and pressing matters at hand, such as the election. of someone who is convicted of in civil court, or the fact that Trump is appointing people who have had multiple credible allegations put out against them. What really disturbs me is the fixation these people have on other people's genitals. So something that commonly happens when people in power attack marginalized groups of people is they use stereotypes to their advantage to confirm and justify their actions. We've seen this happen before in the past with Jews in Nazi Germany. We're seeing this happening now with Palestinians in occupied Palestine. Common denominator in all these instances is using people's fears against them to further a particular narrative. In the instance of transgender people, this fear is the fear of having them normally integrated as a part of our society. For so long, transgender people were outcasted. This notion that transgender people can just be regular members of society is now something that's been used as a weapon against transgender people and cisgender people to scare them into believing that that's a bad thing. I don't know if I make sense here, but this is all an ideological game that seeks to pit people against each other for no apparent reason than to uphold structures of patriarchy and white power. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. The issue of safety for transgender women isn't even put into consideration here because it's so focused on attacking a group of people. Yeah, like trans women have been so privileged the past 4 years under the Biden administration. I don't have the mental energy to argue about TERFs anymore, so to any cis allies who are watching this, please, for the love of all that's good in this world, like, stand up for us in any way you can, because this shit's gonna become a lot more common in the next 4 years, and I, for one, just want to piss in the bathroom and get out. I do not care about anything else, I promise. No, thank you, if you don't mind. I will go and use my own home bathroom where I am sure that nobody is looking over my stalls and inspecting what's in my pants.